Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Stroke Inspire program, Coffee and Chat. We're so excited to have you here with us today. And so, without further ado, I just wanted to thank Lynn Kloeckner, the Stroke Inspire leader, for being here today and for presenting to us. And so, without further ado, Lynn, I will hand it off to you to present our Stroke Inspire program, Coffee and Chat. Thank you so much for being here today.
Good morning. Can you all see and hear me okay? Okay. All right. I'm hoping my camera is working. Let's see here. Okay. So I'm just going to work out this tech issue. Okay, so I got a comment that you can all see and hear me, so that is good. Sorry about that hiccup. Good morning. So my name is Lynn Kloeckner. I lead the Stroke Inspire program. So we'll just jump right into it. So my background is as an occupational therapist, and then I've been in this role for about a year and a half. It'll be 2 years in October. So super happy to be here, and thank you for hosting this morning. So here's some objectives. So first, I'll talk about what it is, what Stroke Inspire is, what our mission, our vision, and services and community initiatives are. And throughout my discussion about our programming, I'll also sprinkle in some research or evidence that supports our programming. I got another comment that I can't be heard. Let's see. Okay, I'm getting a note. Okay, thank you, Amy. So I got another note that I can be heard. So I will just continue on. Apologies for that again. So like I said, I will review some evidence and research about programming, as I really do use that as a foundation for the things that I'm developing. Okay, and then I will also talk about ways to locate the contact information and activity information on ways, okay, on how to get connected to our information and then how to get involved. I have no disclosures about this presentation. So the background on Inspire, what is it? And I promise I won't read every slide, but this is just, it is what it is, so I read it this way. So Inspire provides stroke education, community programs, support groups, and wellness offerings to stroke survivors and their caregivers and members of our community. We give participants the opportunity to connect, encourage one another, volunteer in the community, and to participate in many other unique experiences. It's important to note that everything that happens in Inspire, all of our programming is funded fully on grants, donation, and fundraising efforts. It's a pretty incredible representation of how the community really supports this initiative and these programs and how we all gather around to support each other in this instance. So moving forward, Inspire began thanks to Karen Bjorgan, that's the woman here in this image. She had a stroke when she was just 32 years old, shortly after she had delivered her baby. So Inspire has been around for nearly 25 years, and she was able to begin this program out of Methodist Hospital and the Park Nicollet Foundation. And since my onboarding after her retirement, and actually before her retirement too, we really were working on bringing Inspire across the entire Park Nicollet and Health Partners system. So it really is a gem that came out of the Park Nicollet Foundation, also a gem that came out of Methodist Hospital. And I'm so fortunate and lucky to be able to bring it across the entire system. And by that, I mean to the other hospitals in Park Nicollet and Health Partners. And for example, that would mean like Regions Hospital and hospitals on the east and west sides of the Twin Cities. So who can be referred? So stroke survivors, many of them are in images on the right there. I took those images out of our newsletter, which I'll talk about later. The stroke survivors can be hospitalized. They can be members of the community. And for context, current participants range from months to years since having had their stroke. An example I like to use is that we have some individuals who log on to our virtual support groups while they're still hospitalized and still going through rehab, and continue to join us even after they discharge or after they return to work or as they're working to return to work, and for many years after that. Other individuals will join us. Maybe they've been out in the community for 5 years already. They found us and then they join us that way too. So we have a really incredible mix of individuals who join. And it's neat to be able to see people who have been living with their stroke for a long time, and then others who maybe haven't been living with their stroke for as long, and they can all share information and lift each other up that way. The same goes for caregivers. So we are able to offer virtual and in-person caregiver support groups as well, which I will talk about. But we recognize that stroke impacts obviously the survivor, but the unit and the folks who support that survivor as well. So we're fortunate to be able to bring that to them. And another important note is that these referrals don't have to be from the health partners of the Park Nicollet system. Kind of a fun thing I like to share lately is we actually have people logging in. So far, I've had people join us from 4 different countries even. So you could say that we're international, but we are open to people who come from any health system. Mostly our folks come from the Twin Cities area and Wisconsin at the moment. But like I said, we're not limited to that. So we're really just here for any stroke survivor who needs this type of support, or wants the support or wants to learn more or get engaged. So for our programming, here's some of that evidence I like to sprinkle in. I won't read this or get too deep into it, but though this is an older study, it says exactly what we're going for very clearly. So what this says is that research shows that individuals who have strokes with more severe deficits, but are involved with support groups such as Inspire, actually have better functional outcomes over time than individuals who had other individuals who had strokes, but did not have that type of social support. So it just really shows the importance of this type of programming, especially as it relates to functional status. So that's like their ability to, take care of themselves, get back to work, get back into the community, things like that. And so that last sentence there, it says socially isolated patients may be at a particular risk for a poor outcome. And I think we recognize that. So it's cool to be able to offer kind of a solution to that social isolation. And the same thing goes for caregivers. So this just says that the role of social support groups was found to be critical for family caregivers to cope with caregiving issues. So similar thing there. It's kind of the saying, like, it takes a village to, lift each other up during difficult times, support each other during difficult times. And that's just what this is saying, and the last study was saying. And of note, this study was published just last fall. Okay, so our current programming, I'll kind of go through some of these, and then the ones that have an asterisk next to them, I do talk about them a little more in depth as we go forward. So the big ones are those support groups, which I've mentioned. So we have both in-person and virtual survivor and caregiver support groups. The in-person survivor support groups and caregiver support groups happen at Methodist Hospital. And then we also have in-person support that happens at the Neuroscience Center in St. Paul, as well as a caregiver opportunity at Regions Hospital. So you can see that we're really expanding those services. And then down on the bottom, you can see in October, we're actually starting an in-person support group at Hudson Hospital. So again, just really expanding those services and those opportunities. For individuals who are not in close proximity to those sites, the virtual options are really fantastic. Like I said, people call in from different countries now, which is super cool. So that really breaks down that proximity barrier. Camera Club is a super fun group where we pair up with community volunteers who are photographers, and also stroke survivors who are photographers, to learn about photography, to practice taking photos, and then I'll show you an example of some of the beautiful greeting cards we make as a result of that, and what we do with those greeting cards as well. Speakers Club is a virtual group, which is really great for individuals with aphasia, or which is, a difficulty communicating, difficulty getting words out, speaking, things like that, which can be common after stroke. But also a really great group for individuals who want to just work on public speaking, organizing their thoughts, or someone who just wants to listen to topics that might be of interest. So Speakers Club, I like to compare almost to like a Toastmasters, which is really fun. So Inspired Voices, we are also integrating melodic breathing and kind of voice work. So that you could consider almost like a music group, which is facilitated by a retired speech pathologist and a professionally trained voice coach. I hope I'm representing her backgrounds very well. She wears many hats and is very talented. So we're happy to have her in our organization to support Inspired Voices. I mentioned the survivor and the caregiver support groups. The guided meditation, everyone and anyone is welcome to join that one. That's every other Monday, and that is facilitated by someone who is extremely qualified to do that. He's been practicing meditation for many years, as well as teaching meditation, and he has a background in as being a healthcare provider as well. And then I'll talk about the virtual education, the mentors, and the brain gym more in depth, as those has the asterisks next to them. The green boxes are groups that are upcoming. So we're happy to add these this fall and this summer. So in June, we're starting a virtual book club, which is just as it sounds. So excited about that. And then in September, I'll talk about this a little more as well. We're starting a new survivor educational and support series. So this is a group that is geared towards individuals who are within that first 1 to 2 years since having had their stroke. And I'll talk more about the reasoning behind that going forward, but super excited to have that one. A lot of community support, as well as provider support behind that as well. And then in October, we are starting that in-person support group at Hudson Hospital. So here is a outlook of our stroke education group. This is actually the lineup for this year. So you can see that we have speakers all the way up until October, which is super cool. So that, I mean, people are really willing to come and speak to this group. And so at the top, you can see that everyone is welcome. So this one occurs the second Thursday of every month from 3:30 to 4:30, and it's virtual. So again, breaking down that maybe transportation barrier, just making sure that everyone has access to this information. And you can see kind of the wide variety of information that we're able to find. So January, February, and March, we really had a lot of great researchers from the University of Minnesota come in and talk about their studies, but talk about kind of what's new and what's on the horizon in terms of research, but also in terms of upcoming treatments and things like that for stroke. So you can see we spoke about spasticity, physically active lifestyles, and then movement and control. That one was about differences in sides of the body and how those recover after stroke and what they're learning about that. You can see in April, we learned about a woman's journey who returned to art after stroke. She's a local fantastic painter. So she talked about her story, spoke about her story. We talk about pelvic health. We have some nurse practitioners and PAs talking, some folks from our neuroscience center talking about acupuncture, social workers. We have a pharmacist coming in the fall, as well as a nutritionist. So you can see that we have a really wide variety of information coming into our programming about stroke. And then also, I like to think that this information touches on both sides of stroke. So kind of the prevention factors, the rehab factors, but then also living with stroke as well. So a little more research to sprinkle in. This just talks about how support groups and groups like Inspire are important factors in community stroke education and resource awareness. A really big component of what we do in Inspire, but also our stroke programming just at Health Partners in Park Nicollet, is working towards spreading that awareness about stroke, spreading the risk factor knowledge about stroke, what to do if someone's having a stroke, just getting that information out there. And so, being able to offer this as a part of Inspire, it has an amazing community reach, but then also the evidence supports that, yeah, it works. It actually does do what we're hoping that it does. So if someone misses a program or misses a presentation from, our educational series, I've been fortunate to be able to put these recordings on YouTube on our database. So I'll show you how to get connected with that at the end, but know that these recordings do live on. So again, really want to make sure that people always have the access to this information. NeuroWell Brain Gym is another program that we are able to work closely with. And I put this in here. NeuroWell is a whole other really amazing program that Health Partners is able to offer. I do like to talk about Brain Gym specifically because we were so fortunate to be able to get or to have a donor who is supporting scholarships for folks to be able to participate in this. So thanks to that, we're able to offer an Inspire scholarship to support someone's participation in this for 2 months. And so that would mean that they're able to participate in Brain Gym twice a week for 2 months. And what this program is it's an hour-long virtual program that alternates every 15 minutes between cognitive exercise and then physical exercise. And so that alternation is just like a really amazing bath of rehab and exercise for your brain to be able to help facilitate that rehab. It is a fee-based program, and so we're really happy to be able to bring down that financial barrier to some folks. Again, and that's a virtual platform. And that is led by providers out of the Neuroscience Center in St. Paul. Here are some images from our activity groups. Just for some context, I think these are nice to throw in there. So this one is you can see we have images from Inspired Voices where people are playing or using instruments and other tools for breathing and then making music. The top left there, we have speakers from Toastmasters come in. They've been volunteering with Inspire for a long time. The bottom left is a typical day at a support group, which is great. And the bottom right, those are the cards that our photographers from Camera Club actually make and we're able to sell as a fundraiser. This month is Stroke Awareness Month, so we actually had a lot of our events in the last couple of weeks, and we sold those cards at our flower sale, and we started with over 150 cards, and I want to say we maybe have somewhere near 50 left. So they're really beautiful. They sell really well because they are just so cool. And so just for context, we probably sold about 100 of those and gosh, they were only on sale for like 2 days. So it's super cool to be able to partner that way with our community and our stroke survivors and the individuals in Camera Club. Okay, so another big part of what we do is the Inspire Mentor program. And what that is, these are the Stroke Inspire mentors are stroke survivors who are at least 1 year out from having had their stroke, and they've participated in Inspire for at least 6 months. And they're willing to volunteer their time to go up into the rooms, the hospital rooms of individuals who just survived their stroke. So they're really able to, like it says, provide that continuum of support, encouragement, but then also to provide resources and to connect new stroke survivors with Inspire programming. You can see down there, and this quote really stuck with me. This was from a mentor when I was first onboarding him. He said, "I like to keep in mind that we're here to support you through this. And so the idea here is that these individuals volunteer their time to go up and listen and support and really share their stories and kind of give that idea that, hey, um, we're living meaningful lives after this. And, I'm hopeful that, you can too, you can get through this. So it's an amazing program that, I'm really proud to be able to offer. Again, some research to support this. So I'll just read the conclusions. So peer support can potentially enhance service to stroke survivors, right? So increasing that, their perceptions of their hospitalization, hopefully giving them a more comfortable stay, that sense of, companionship while they're in a hospital room, which can get quite lonely sometimes. But then they can also promote community reintegration for peer volunteers. So the benefits really go both ways. And by the community reintegration, you can look at it in terms of gaining some return to work skills if that's something that the volunteer wants to do. And also giving them, routine, sense of purpose, things like that. And that was having that sense of purpose and that meaning was a massive component of why Karen originally started this group. So one more study at the top there. So stroke survivors feel that rehabilitation in familiar environments and therapeutic activities that reflect real life could help their community reintegration. So these Inspire mentors really do demonstrate that. And I put some of those mentor responsibilities at the bottom. I won't talk about them just for time's sake too much, but you can see all the skills that it takes to be able to do that as well, and how that might work in towards return to work or other activities in the community as they work to reintegrate after their stroke. Um, And of course, I say this, the volunteers who work with Inspire really do make the world go round. I'm just one person, and a lot of the other support that I have comes from our volunteers. And I can't thank them enough for that. So last year, these are our numbers from last year. We had 25 volunteers at Methodist Hospital, not just mentors, volunteers in general. So we have folks who help us with setup and takedown of support groups, help with, events and parties, help with more like clerical or office type of work. And then 5 volunteers at regions. So the mentors, these numbers are from this year. I updated that here. So we have 9 at Methodist Hospital, and then we have 5 at Regions Hospital. So we're able to have someone at each site 5 to 6 days a week. So if you're hospitalized for a week, there's a chance you're going to get to meet 5 or 6 different stroke survivors. And we also have a caregiver who visits on Tuesday nights. And so I think that, that scope of different perspectives is so important. And hopefully within that, the new stroke survivor is able to find someone that they can relate to. We have 9 at Methodist because there are some dynamic duos that go up together. So that is why that number is higher than 7 or 6. So last year, our mentors at both sites were able to touch 500 or make 552 different interactions with stroke survivors. Those numbers on those kind of starbursts there, those are this year's numbers already. So on the left, that number 150, that is how many visits our volunteers, our Inspire mentors just at Methodist Hospital have made since January. And then on the right, that 483, that is the total number of visits we've made since January across our system. So I think it's safe to say we're going to blow last year's numbers out of the water. And that's just really a nod to the hard work that our volunteers are doing up on the units. And that 426 number at the bottom, that is a number that represents how many flyers or folders we actually hand out each time we visit somebody. So every time we have a new interaction with someone, we give them a folder with information about Inspire, information about resources. There's some information for caregivers in there. And so we have a volunteer who fills all of those folders. And so he's been very, very busy. As you can see, there's been a lot of folders that we've handed out. So just a great way to provide that information. Okay, and I'll keep my eye on the time. So as far as community, so we really integrate into the community and education. I put in parentheses there because that's always our underlying theme, is providing that education. So you can see last year, this is a list of all the places that we went to just provide that outreach into the community and education. Sometimes we sit at a table at a large event. Sometimes we give a presentation. Sometimes it's a smaller meeting with, a coalition in various community groups as well. And last year we reached around 1,100 to 1,500 community members. So far in 2024, we're close to 1,600, and that is due to the widespread outreach of our unmasking. So the unmasking event I'll talk about later, but that brings stroke awareness using art based off of displays that are located in hospitals across our system. And so when people pass by in the hospitals, they do stop to read that. And so that's a hard number to measure because it's hard to know how many people come and go from a hospital each day. But that is just a rough estimate. So super cool to be able to bring that sort of educational impact into our communities. These are the networks that we work closely with. So you can see the Minnesota Stroke Association, Minnesota Brain Injury Alliance, MinCAN, so that stands for Minnesota Connect Aphasia Now, the American Stroke Association, Courage Kenny, and the Minnesota Department of Health. We all work so closely together, and we all share similar missions just to bring that support, programming, and resource facilitation to members of our community. On the right there, you can see that Inspire is very prevalent on the American Stroke Association website. So there's lots of ways to search for our programming. These are our marketing and social media platforms. You can see we're on Facebook, YouTube. YouTube is where that educational database is. Eventbrite is where you can get access to our support group programming, and also look at what we have in terms of events that might be upcoming. We're on the Health Partners Stroke Center web pages. I have a SharePoint site for internal partners, the NeuroWell website, which I talked about in terms of Brain Gym. And then, like I just showed, the community partners. So we have high community visibility with them as well. I would encourage all of you to get involved by signing up for our newsletter. So you can see that there. And then in every newsletter, I really do, again, like to talk about, I put components in there about education. We talk about the BFAST acronym. So I will use that as a moment here just to mention that on this call. So BFAST is the acronym that we like to use to help people recognize the signs of a stroke. So B stands for balance loss or balance changes. E stands for eyesight changes. F stands for facial droop or asymmetry in your face. A stands for arm weakness. You could even throw numbness in there. S stands for speech difficulty, so things like slurred speech or difficulty making words. And then T is time to call 911. So we like to tell people, if you're experiencing signs of a stroke, don't wait for it to pass. Don't drive yourself to the hospital, call 911. And the reason for that is if you call 911, the ambulance is actually able to start the cascade of events that needs to happen to make sure that you get your treatment as quickly as possible and to identify your stroke. So for every minute or every 2 minutes that a stroke, every minute that a stroke is left untreated, 2 million neurons in your brain actually die. And so the saying we use is time is brain. So the sooner you can get to the hospital, the sooner you can get treatment for your stroke, hopefully by recognizing it early, the sooner that, you can start to save or minimize the amount of damage that is done. So we do have the BFAST acronym in all of our newsletters. That is kind of the main thing that we like to spread throughout the community because it's the easiest way to identify the signs of a stroke and then what to do if someone's having a stroke. And then we also have things like announcement and events, and a spotlight of our survivors are in there as well. Here's some pictures from our events. We just had Strides for Stroke last weekend. That's the image on the top left there. And I'm going to continue moving along just to keep my eye on the time. So research and goals. So where are we going? So upcoming, in amazing partnerships with Minnesota Department of Health, University of Minnesota, we're going to work to integrate into the Hmong and Spanish communities. So breaking down that barrier of language, breaking down those cultural barriers, or at least finding a way to understand what people from different cultures and different backgrounds want and need in terms of stroke support. That might not look the same way that it does as we currently run Inspire. And I want to respect that and recognize that and learn what we can do, to help support in those communities. We want to implement physical exercise programming. I put exercise in quotes because I think when people think about exercise, they think about going to the gym and lifting weights. But really the main thing that we're looking to do is decrease sedentary time, which would mean, going out and getting into the garden, taking a walk around the block, unloading your dishwasher, doing your laundry, things like that really do have an impact in terms of stroke recovery. And so hoping to, find ways to increase, we do have programming that we can hopefully implement soon with goals such as that. And then I spoke about our new survivor and education group. So we're working on cohort development there. That is for individuals in the first 1 to 2 years since their stroke, including their caregivers. That runs every 6 months. Well, it runs for 6 months, twice a year, and we have 12 classes. So it meets twice a month. And we have various topics that have been recorded by members of our community, expert members of our community, but then also providers who will talk about those common questions and those common topics that come up in those first 1 to 2 years. And this was developed out of a need because we were having individuals join our groups who just had their stroke, and their priorities are seeming to be a little bit different than the individuals who had their stroke maybe 10 years ago, and that's okay. So we just wanted to give those individuals who just had their strokes that opportunity, to develop that network of individuals who are in similar situation, but then really that focused attention on education. Answering those common questions that new stroke survivors might have. And then that's followed by a support style group on the second half of those. We're measuring our impact on the participants. This has been supported by the Minnesota Department of Health. And just big picture, we're looking at, okay, so if you're someone who's in Inspire, what's your perception on your affect and your quality of life, your perceptions of your well-being, compared to someone who had a stroke who is not involved in Inspire. And so we're taking a look at measuring that. We have some pretty good pilot data already. And then we're looking at, before we build programming into the Hmong community, if they want it, right? So we have to ask the question, what's it like to be a Hmong stroke survivor or a caregiver? And so this is a big project that we're hopeful to begin in the fall. We have done, a lot of our evidence and literature review already. We have some amazing community partners, including individuals from the University of Minnesota, the Health Partners Institute, the stroke systems supervisor from the Minnesota Department of Health, as well as our stroke systems manager, who are able to support this program. So we're going to ask that question and hopefully build our programming based off of what their specific wants and needs are. Here's how to get connected. You can look for us on Eventbrite. You can email me at the information or the email address at the end of this slide. If you're someone who's internal, you can always chat or email me as well. And then to wrap up, I always ask this question in our newsletter for folks who are in our spotlight section, but what would you tell someone who's thinking about joining Inspire? And just for time's sake, I'll just read Ralph's in the middle. So he says, I'll tell people where I would have been without Inspire. I would have stayed home and been depressed going down the why me path. Life is a journey, and every day you have the option to decide who you want to be and how you will move forward. So I'll leave it at that. They're amazing people. I'm so thankful that they're in this programming. And they really, the individuals who are in this really truly do believe in this mission and this program. So there is my contact information. And I guess, good, we have a little bit of time for questions. I cooked through some of that pretty quickly, but I believe, Abby, we're open to questions now. I'll leave my contact info on there while we do that in case anyone wants to write it down.
Yes, Lynn, thank you so much. This was such a fantastic presentation and with such wonderful information. And for those on the call that have questions, please enter them into the Q&A box and I will read them off. But I do have 2 questions right off the bat to ask you, Lynn. What are some of the best ways to support a stroke survivor early in their recovery?
Oh, great one. Oh gosh, that's a big question. I can see, I'm not going to do this, but I can see that there are some Inspire members on the call, and I would just ask them. But what I would say is, being there for them, clearly communicating with them. What we always say is different strokes for different folks. So that's a really hard question to answer because everybody's needs are so different. I do think that just being there for them, being a partner, supporting them, is probably the best thing that you can do from what I've experienced and what I've seen, because everybody's experiences are so, so different.
Thank you so much. And then one question that I wanted to ask you is, what do you love most about leading the Stroke Inspire program? I know that's a very open-ended question, but just thought I would share just because the passion you have for this program and for the volunteers and participants and mentors and everyone like that is just so evident and infectious. And so I just wanted to ask you that question.
Yeah, thank you. I think the thing that I really do love the most is every day I get to work with people who have had life-changing experiences, and their resilience and their positivity and their vulnerability are skills that I think are not easily acquired. And so to be able to be surrounded by that is so personally fulfilling. And it really gives just amazing perspective. So it's cool to be surrounded by that. It's life-changing to be surrounded by that, but also to be able to bring that information out to the community is really impactful too.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one more question here. What are the greatest needs of the Stroke Inspire program, and if you have any commentary on how they can be addressed, that would be great.
Yeah. So, oh man. So greatest needs. Great question. We have next year we'll be implementing, like I said, that exercise programming, right? Or that movement programming. And so finding ways to break down like barriers because of like cost or transportation, barriers for engagement to our programming is essential. And so we have really great infrastructure, to be able to support these programs or to be able to, hold these programs or host them, but helping people actually get to them, and helping people to actually connect with them, is a great need. And so I would say that for now. Yes, and just the ability to be able to continue to grow our programming into these other communities as well.
Thank you. And we do have a question in the chat. This is such an innovative program meeting an important need. Are there other similar programs out there, or are we on the leading edge?
Yeah, I thank you for asking that, Haley. As far as I know, there is only one other program like this in the entire country, and it's nowhere near as robust as Inspire is. So Inspire is very unique. We're definitely on the leading edge. And I can tell you, having worked with, researchers at the U of M, researchers with the Minnesota Department of Health, we are really, really motivated to demonstrate through publishing, through research, through our community programming, the impact that this type of group or organization has on the long-term benefits for people who went through stroke. So we're really leading the way, and we're really working to demonstrate that on a statewide level, but we're also being encouraged to demonstrate that on a national level as well. So a lot of really exciting things coming, because we are really a leader in this arena.
Thank you so much for that. And Lynn, if people have questions after the coffee and chat session today, is it okay if I forward them over to you and then they can get their questions answered?
Absolutely. And, with that, I'll say, please always reach out. I personally answer both of those email addresses right there. I have no robot that is like, managing my inboxes. So, if you can just get in touch with me however you need to, I'm happy to help in any way that I can, or to provide more information.
Lynn, thank you so much for your time and expertise and your excellent presentation. The Stroke Inspire program is so wonderful, and it was so nice to learn more about it today. And so thank you for your time, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having me. Take care.